Hey everyone, welcome to the Iowa Gravel Series Podium podcast. My name is Chris McQueen. I am the race director for the series. And today I have Seth Tellinghuisen, one of our podium winners at Pisgah, Preparation Pisgah this last August 2022. And Seth, I believe, is our youngest podium winner that we've had that's been in a full division. We don't have a ton of divisions with the Iowa Gravel Series. It's basically just men's, women's, and sometimes if we have enough people sign up, we have a juniors division, and that's it. And so Seth is one of our youngest and fastest racers that we've had, and we're so excited to have an opportunity to sit down with him, talk to him a little bit about his experience, how he got into gravel racing, what he's got planned for in the future. So just a little bit about Seth before I kind of open it up and we talk to him a little bit. Seth is in Lincoln, Nebraska. He's 19. He raced on the gravel series. This is his first year of racing gravel, and he's raced at two other races on our series, and I believe a few other places as well. And so we'll talk about that. But he had a fun adventure at Silver City. I remember that. We'll talk about his little adventure through the grass fields. I think there was some lessons learned at Albia around equipment, specifically gearing. We'll talk about that. And then we'll definitely want to hit on Pisgah, this most recent race, because it was a doozy. And so that's where he got second place on the podium against our kind of reigning champion, Jake Johnson, who has been on the podium every time at our races so far. So a few other things about Seth. He just recently joined the Omaha Velo team, is proudly repping that. Seth, I don't know if you want to show your t-shirt to all the folks at home watching on YouTube. And he has been admitted, or that sounds terrible. He's been accepted to Western Colorado University in Gunnison, and will be starting there, I think, in just a couple of weeks, right, Seth?
Yeah, actually this Monday.
Wow, excited.
Next Monday.
Well, Seth, I am so glad to have you. So excited to talk to you and learn a little bit about. We've talked a little bit at the races, but I haven't really gotten a chance to get to know you, and so I'm really grateful for this opportunity. Thanks for your time.
Yes, thank you for having me here.
You're welcome. So, Seth, let's start a little bit in the beginning with kind of like your entry into gravel racing. Like, there aren't a lot. There are some, but there aren't a lot of 19-year-old folks racing gravel, at least not at the gravel races that I'm putting on right now. I think you get them a little bit, and there's leagues that are in mountain biking and other areas that are more focused on juniors. But can you give us just a little bit of history on your path? How did you end up racing gravel this year? Where did your journey with cycling racing kind of start?
Well, last fall, my dad asked me if I want. Well, last summer, my dad asked me if I wanted to do mountain biking, and I decided to do that. And I did real well in the mountain biking series for NICA. And then I went to cyclocross, and then we just kept trying to find races that were just any races that are available, we would go to them. And I did one gravel race that was like 30 miles, and it was really fun. It was a brutal race, my first gravel race. And then I guess just started doing a ton. And then this last spring I did like a 4-race series down in Wichita, and it just kind of spiraled from there of doing gravel racing all the time.
What was that first race that you did, the 30 miler? Which one?
Visca, I think. Is that what it's called?
Was it in Villisca?
Yeah,
Iowa?
Villisca. There we go.
Was it Swig?
Yeah.
And you did the 30-mile version of Swig in Villisca, Iowa.
Yes, that was my first gravel race.
Oh, that's awesome. Corey McAlpine's the race director for that. He is a great guy. I think I think it was probably my third gravel race in Iowa was at Corey's Swig. It's
really?
It's a great experience. So that's a good one to start on. It's got he in that area. There's great Class B roads. There's a lot of up and down rolly gravel. That's a challenging area.
Yes, it was fun. I do remember that course vividly.
Well, maybe we'll need to come back because there was a few other things that you mentioned in there. You also did cyclocross, and I think before we started the recording, and everything, you mentioned that you had started back even earlier with BMX in like sixth grade.
Yes. So yeah, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. We have a really good BMX track in Lincoln, and my neighbor was racing BMX, and he just asked me if I wanted to go, and I just had like my little Walmart bike, like the Huffy, and so I just go out there and ride that with him, and then I started getting interested in it. But if we backtracking a little more even than that, my growing up, my dad used to race mountain bikes, and so I've just always been around biking scene, and like we've always had like 20 bikes hanging on our wall in our garage, and it's just like has just always been a part of my life. So then going into BMX was like kind of natural, I guess, and then going into gravel and cyclocross and mountain bike was just more. It's just always like meant to be, I guess.
Do you remember maybe a point in those early times when you're like, you know what, um, that that was fun, like kind of a key moment where you're like, yes, sure, I'm familiar with bikes, I'm comfortable with bikes, they're always around, but you had maybe this moment where you're like, you know what, I'm fast, like I can I can beat other people, or I can,
Yeah.
I'm better at bikes than other people. Was there a moment in your youth, or that you remember a
Um,
key moment that maybe you had that realization?
in BMX, wouldn't necessarily say that. I guess I didn't think too much when I was riding BMX. I kind of just went out and did it. But when I started racing mountain bikes and I did the Nika series, like I went out the first race and it was my first year and everybody else had been racing like last year. I went out and won by like 7 minutes.
Oh,
And I was just like, maybe I'm pretty good at this. Like I'm going pretty fast compared to what other people are doing. And then yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say though that BMX I had a key moment where I thought I was real fast. I kind of just did that for fun.
oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. Well, and I would think that BMX can be an incredibly great place to get your top end speed up and control,
Yes,
like your bike handling
100%.
skills. BMX is going to be great for that.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I think BMX is a big part of the reason why able to be so good today, just because sixth, seventh, eighth grade is still developing a lot. And so learning how to really handle a bike properly that young translates over to being able to do very good and later on. And
Oh,
yeah, top end speed too. I would say that definitely helped. And also just going out to the BMX track and not riding consistently for 3 hours, but just being out there for 3 hours, just doing loop after loop definitely helped a little bit of my endurance in a way
yeah.
than not doing it.
Well, and tell me, I mean, were your friends all also doing BMX? Was this something that like you were out there for 3 hours, like with a group, and
Yeah,
that was just your social, that was just the place to hang out?
right. Yeah, my neighbor did it. And so I'd just catch a ride out with him every night and just go ride for 3 hours a night, just going over the track over and over and just having fun mainly. And yeah,
Nice.
it's good.
I did not grow up with BMX, so there's a thing, some things with BMX that I don't understand. I think I was always very afraid of like the crashing and the jumping elements of it. So how for you, what kept it fun to keep going around that track, and what kept it fun? I mean, did you get into kind of the air stuff, or were you more about speed? What was it that kept BMX fun for you?
Um, I definitely wasn't for the air. I still don't like jumps. Like I like mountain biking, but I like to stay on the ground. But uh it probably was just going out with friends every night. There wasn't like and I enjoyed getting faster and then like going from my Walmart Huffy bike to going to an actual nice red line BMX bike was like a big change. It was my first time having like an actual bike that was a good bike and that was like made it more fun to go out and ride it. And yeah, just being around friends and yeah, but I I was never one for jumps. Still not.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know if that's ever in my future, but you can always learn something new, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, you also made a quick mention on cyclocross. Did you, just to get kind of an order of events here a little bit, was it uh BMX and then Nika with that mountain bike series, cyclocross and then gravel, or was cyclocross before mountain biking?
So no, it was I started doing mountain biking, and I before the Nika season I had done a few races. Like the Villisca race was before the Nika season actually, but after the Nika season was over, so were most other mountain bike races, and that's when cross really started kicking in. And so I probably did like 6 to 10 races for cyclocross just during the winter over in Iowa last year, like Des Moines area, a lot of the times, or like Iowa City. And then after, and I did a few gravel races in between there, like the East West Growler, which actually is where me and you first rode at.
That's right. We do. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. We probably need to pause there a little bit or come back to it. Come
Yes,
back to
we can.
the growler, because we ended up. I'd been off the bike for quite a while, and I was just kind of trying to take it fairly easy.
Right.
And then I think you came up behind me, and we ended up with a group together, and then we got lost.
Yeah, we did.
We
Yes.
missed a turn.
Yeah, we gotta figure out where we were going. I remember that.
But I remember you being super strong. I also don't remember you being on the most sophisticated equipment though either. Didn't you
So
borrow a bike?
yes, that was Kyle Melbourne's bike who worked at Method. It was a Trek Crockett. And yeah, I didn't have a real gravel bike at that time. So he would just let me borrow it all the time whenever I went doing cyclocross or gravel racing.
That was my
Yeah.
next question, is like, was that what you were doing cyclocross on as well?
Yeah. Yeah. Because
Nice.
we have a real old white and red S-Works Specialized. It's really old. And like it just did not have the right gearing for any of that. And yeah, so we just would borrow that bike and it worked really nice. It was a great bike.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, it sounds like you've had like a lot of really good support in all of this. So maybe tell me a little bit about like who's kind of been supporting you in this. I mean, I've met your dad. You mentioned the bikes all around. I've met your mom. They've both come out to the race and cheered you on and everything. Sounds like you've had some support from oh shoot, I forgot who was it, the bike shop owner at Method that
Jason Brummels.
Jason.
And
So you've had
then Kyle Melbourne was the mechanic there, and he helped us out a lot. But yeah, both them helped us out a good amount. And then now it's the Bikeway with Omaha Velo. They have recently uh, been doing great numbers to help us out and get me race ready for the weekend.
Wow. So, I mean, tell me a little bit about that. I think one of the challenges for a lot of folks to get into racing, especially when they're young, is just it takes equipment, it takes knowledge and know-how. You need someone to wrench and we'll talk a little bit more about gearing because that's part of the story with Albia. There's figuring out like, okay, what gearing do I need for the racing that I'm doing? And those are a lot of things that usually come with experience, which is, I mean, if you've got talent, you're obviously got an engine. You're out there racing with some of the fastest folks that have done Ironman triathlons and things like that. But you don't have that. You don't have all that experience. So tell me what you're kind of relying on, or tell me about the folks that are around you that you see helping you, and who's kind of been your support group.
Well, I definitely say my main support is my mom and my dad. They go to like almost every race they can. Well, my dad has been to literally every race I've been to, but my mom tries to come to all the other ones. And financially, they're my main support. They pay for my races and they drive me to the races and buy my food for the races. And yeah, they do a great number. And then the Bikeway, they have definitely helped. I just got a new bike actually, which and they helped out big time for um like discounts and stuff with that, and like being able to take it there and get in front of the line of and not like, so if it's like Friday and they have a race Saturday, I could just take it there and I'll be the first one on the stand, so I don't have to wait 3 days to get my bike back. And they've definitely been a big help. Um, who else? I have a friend in Iowa, Kyle Sedor.
Hmm.
He is definitely been a big help from the start. He he switched my mountain bike tires over to tubeless actually because we were running tubes. And yeah, he definitely helped with that, and he's always just been there. And he was one of my dad's original race buddies way back in the day. So we've known him forever, and he's always been a big support.
Was it
Um,
Albia that there was a learning experience as well with the tubeless? Was that,
that
or
was Silver City.
that was Silver City?
Yes, that was Silver City. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Maybe we need to get into that then, because and what I was trying to get with that last question is, I think, there are so many folks that help us out along the way, and personally, one of the things that I'm working on, like figuring out more in my life, is like acknowledging and having that gratitude for all these people that are around us that are really supporting us. I feel incredibly supported by everybody who comes out on the race and everything, so that folks like you can have a field to race against, and see these folks accomplish new things or try new things. I just love it. I'm really grateful for it. So just kind of wanted to give you a chance there to share who's been kind of your support. So let's talk a little bit about races, and I think let's go ahead and go back to that growler, because that was last year fall, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think like everything had gone kind of brown and everything. It was kind of late
It
fall.
was, yeah, it was later. I think it was like November almost.
Yeah, but it was warm. I don't remember it being too
Yeah.
cold. I remember it
No,
being
it
kind of
was
okay.
nice.
And what side were you racing for?
West side for Lincoln. It was split down the Platte, I think.
Well, I'm trying to remember. I thought I was racing west side, um, because sorry, not west side, east. I thought I was racing east side. I don't remember now. I thought I was
Yeah,
racing east side because I was in Iowa. I'm like, well, that's east.
I I can imagine you were. I'm pretty sure it was everybody west of Platte River was west, and everybody east of Platte River was east.
And I think that's why I'm like, when I saw you and you kind of came up on me, and I was like, well, this is the person that I need to stay on his tail, and I
Right,
just need to beat him over the finish line.
right.
I think that was my strategy. I'm not super competitive, so I just picked the youngest person I thought I could win, apparently. And I don't think I did. I think we if I remember right, there were two other gentlemen that were kind of with us.
Yes.
We were in a group, and you, I think at some point, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of made a little bit of a break for it on. We were heading through a field on kind of a Class B
Yeah.
section, and they were pacing themselves a little bit smarter than what I think I was doing or whatever. And so I chased after you
Yeah.
and kind of stayed on your tail, and I think we took turns a little bit, and then we missed the turn.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and then we were supposed to like go by a lake, and I think we went by the lake, but I think we were on the wrong side of the lake.
Yeah, I think so
And
too.
yeah, we got on a highway eventually, and then had to figure out how to get back. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember stopping and like pulling my phone out and like mapping it out and trying to figure out where I thought we might
Yes.
might be. And I think the other two guys who I ditched, I think they beat us in,
Yeah.
if I remember right.
I believe so. Yeah.
And I think you beat me in.
Funny.
So my strategy did not work at all. But that was fun. I remember that. So did you realize when you signed up for Silver City that was me? Like, had you made that connection at that
Yes,
point?
I actually did. So I remember looking at the route and seeing Christmas Queen, and I was like, I feel like I recognize that name. And I looked at my Strava, and I was like, oh yes, this is the person I did East West Growler with. And yeah, I made that connection pretty quick actually. And it was, I was like, I didn't know you were putting on a series, and I was like, that's so cool that he is. So.
Did who suggested you did you pick out Silver City, or was this something your dad's like kind of brought to you? Like, how did you end up learning about the series and stuff?
Just bike reg, like my dad would go on bike ride and try and find races for every weekend because we basically try and race like every weekend possible that there's one like close enough. And yeah, that weekend we just happened to find that one, and so we decided to. It was Silver City is real close to Lincoln, only like an hour or so. So we just
Yeah.
picked it.
So maybe pause there a little bit in terms of your schedule. Like you've had a race every week since when? Like how many races have you been in 2022 if you had to guess for just gravel?
Oh, just gravel. Oh, I actually did this the other day. I think I'm at 15 now for gravel. Yeah, I looked through my Strava and counted the other day.
That's a brutal schedule. Like, I mean, are you training during the week? Like,
Yeah.
so what's kind of your training routine looking like if you're racing every week?
Um, it really hasn't been overly organized in the past. It's starting to get much more organized, but like it's usually just been going out and riding 30 miles maybe twice a week or 40 miles once a week, and then doing other shorter rides. It wasn't until actually like the end of May where I really started training hard. Other than that, I up until May, I'd only been putting in like 50 to 80 miles maybe. But right as May hit, I got out of school and then I started doing like 150-mile weeks consistently. And like from then, I've been doing 150 to 200 miles weeks.
Well, I think I definitely I'm definitely seeing like a level of fitness growth in you. I mean, if we think back to that growler, you are on kind of par with me, and I am not an exceptional racer. My training is so because I'm putting on a series and other
Right, right.
things. I've got plenty of life excuses for why I'm not on the podium. But it sounds like you've taken and cleared out all those other things and really focused on building some amazing fitness because Silver City, I'm gonna look up the time here unless you have it like
No,
on
I
memory.
don't.
Do you remember what your time was at Silver City?
No, I do not. No.
All right, let's look it up. So Silver City, Seth. So Silver City is a pretty standard. It's a 62 mile. It is like 62 miles. It's a good course, and I have you at a time of 4 hours and 24 minutes. Now
Right.
we need to qualify that a little bit because there were at least two things that I knew of that happened. One, I think you had the wrong course file, right?
Yeah.
What happened
So
with that? Like, how did we come to discover you did not have the right course file?
so yeah, I was just riding along. At this point in the race, I had gotten separated from like pretty much everyone else. And yeah, I was just riding, just following where it told me to go, and then I went over. It told me to turn into this field, but it was like all tall grass, like 2 feet tall, and I was like, "Hey, I'm racing. I guess this is what it is." And so I just started going through it, and I was like, "Wow, this is wild." And like, why can't I see any tire tracks or anything in the grass? Like, this grass is up 2 feet, and it was just kind of brutal. And it was like probably like mile, 2 miles long of just 2 feet tall grass and like nowhere to ride. And I was just trying to like make it through there. And yeah, then eventually I made it out, got to the end, and we found out that it was last year's course. And yeah, that was interesting.
It was interesting. So just to give some context there, so Silver City 2021, I had the route go through a Department of Natural Resources space called Willow Slough. Beautiful, very fun, but it's the track that I used. What I did is I went through and I mowed that 2 miles last year. And with my schedule, I just didn't have time to mow it this year.
Yeah.
I do hope to bring it back for 2023 because it's really a fun little section. But you're right, you know, it's really tall grass and incredibly bumpy.
Yeah. That was probably the worst part than the tall grass. Tall grass didn't bother me a ton, but like not being able to see bumps, I would just sometimes just like drop all of a sudden, like hit a big bump or a hole or something.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just
it's
had to
pretty
push
intense. But
through it.
but there are blue heron and waterfowl and an eagle's nest all in this area. It's really neat.
Yeah.
It's beautiful and kind of fun. I think I saw my first porcupine there.
Oh, really?
So I thought that was kind of
It's
cool.
cool.
So yeah, so that was Silver City with the route, and you had some flats as well?
Yes. So we had just recently gone to tubeless on my gravel bike at the time. And well, I don't know if it was recently, but it was fairly recently, not too long. And I was just riding, and then my front tire went flat. And I was with like a group of four, a pretty fast group of four. And my tire just went flat. And I was like, all right, see you guys. And so I just kept going. And then I had my dad come by because he was in the car. He likes to come, like drive around and like watch where I am going and stuff. So I just called him, told him to bring a pump. And then I rode like maybe another 20 minutes, and then it went flat again. And then it just started going flat and flat, faster and faster. And then eventually we just like pulled off, took my tire off, and we figured out I had no sealant in my tubeless tire. And so it was just leaking over and over again. Then at that point, there were a fast enough pack for me was like way far up the road. And so yeah, we put in as much we put in sealant, and then I got back out there, and then I kind of blew myself up after that trying to catch them. And then I hit the grass field, and yeah.
So I mean, was what do you take as a racer? What did you take away from Silver City then? That being your first race on the series.
Um that if you after like getting caught behind, you slowly got to reel them back, because I do remember after I got my tire back up, I just started hammering it as hard as I could to try and catch back up. And then after like 5-10 miles, I was so blown up and just hitting the wall so hard. And that was probably, yeah, my biggest one. And to get the right course,
Yeah,
because otherwise you go through a big grass field with big
yeah,
holes.
big goals. All right, good lessons learned. All right, well then let's fast forward a little bit towards Albia. Albia was in July. What rate do you remember? Kind of roughly some races that you had done before? I'm sorry, after Silver City and before Albia. Like how many races were you already racing every week between Silver City and Albia? So I mean that's
Yeah.
because you weren't at Walk On. I mean that's 6-7 weeks of races in between. Do you remember anything memorable in between Silver City and Albia?
Yeah, so actually the next weekend after Silver City, like 10 miles from Silver City, was the Loess Hills Enduro
Oh yeah,
put on by
that's
Harvest.
Rafa's race. Yeah.
Yeah. I do remember that one. Yeah.
How did
That
that
one
go?
was I did pretty good. That was actually my first like 100K gravel race where I thought I actually did good and wasn't like bonking, because before that, most of my 60-mile races I've had problems just trying to figure it out and stuff. And that was my first one where I actually like started to shine through a little bit.
What'd you think of the course?
That was fun. They had giant like ravine type things without like B roads, and those are sick, I thought. And
Yeah.
I didn't know those were in Iowa, but yeah, kind of like the ones that were on this last race actually, like the big giant ravines with like the road through it. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, there it's these less for anybody who's maybe not been on an Iowa Gravel Series race. There's pictures on the website and everything, but interesting characteristic of the soil in this area is this loess. It's like a very fine sugar, very fine clay. And on some of the Class B roads, basically dirt roads that don't have any sort of aggregate material like a gravel or rock laid down, it just they in some places they'll cut these roads through, and as it rains and as time goes by, the road essentially just wilts away, wilts away, wilts away, but it leaves this impacted sugar clay on either side that can, I mean, some of these canyons, that is what they kind of feel like, are will be 20, 30, 40 feet high walls along these
yeah,
roads, which can be really fun. So the Les Hills Enduro, I didn't, well, the Les Hills Enduro and the Glenwood Gravel, I don't know if you're going to Glenwood Gravel in September.
I will be in Colorado.
Oh yeah, you'll be at school. So they share a lot of those Class B roads.
Yeah.
Raffles route on the Les Hills Enduro essentially runs east and west because he comes out of Malvern, and then the
Mhm.
Glenwood hits some of those same roads but runs more or less north and south, and they overlap just a little bit because it's just really a spectacular area.
Yeah.
So and Raffle he usually has his race a little bit earlier in the season, and Glenwood's kind of towards the end of the season. So it's a great opportunity. You got two great opportunities to kind of be in this area. All right, so you did Les Hills. What else do you remember? Anything else before Albia that you remember?
Not really. I think I did a lot of mountain bike races in between there, and uh not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay. What tell me about Albia. What did you think about that experience?
That was a fun one. I enjoyed that one. Yeah, it was my last race on my older bike. It was it was right by a town that I am really familiar with, Knoxville, Iowa, for
Oh,
sprint car racing. And so it
what,
was cool to
sorry,
be
I
around there.
interrupted you and I didn't hear that. What about Knoxville is it that you know?
They have sprint car races there,
Oh, you
like
do sprint
national
car
sprint.
racing as well?
I don't do it. I just like to watch them. We're like a big race family, I guess. NASCAR, sprint car, bike racing. We enjoy racing.
Anything
Um,
fast and in a circle of some sort or a straight
yeah,
line.
right. No, and yeah, that was an interesting one. I do one thing I remember about that course, which is really funny, was the amount of escaped animals I saw.
What do you wait? What escaped animals? What do you
So
mean?
like one of the times we were coming down a road and there was like a calf in the middle of the road, and like we started yelling at it and it ran back towards its fence to try and get in its enclosure. And then we were riding again and there was like some goats in the road and like we yelled at them and there was a lot of goats in the road. There's probably like 5 to 10 goats in the road. We yelled at them and they all ran and jumped back in their enclosure real quick. And then I heard that somebody else saw like two like full bulls.
Oh
I
wow.
just heard that. I didn't see that, but I heard somebody saw like two bulls in the road. And yeah, that was interesting.
So the funny thing with that is with Albia, and the name of the official name of the route is Albia Holy Cow. And when I was like, this is not uncharacteristic for that race for some reason, because even when I was scouting that route, um, I had encounters with like some of the largest pheasant I've ever seen, and had that coming. I had another experience with a big group of turkeys. It goes through a cattle yard essentially. It's a road, it's a specified road, but there's a cattle yard on each side, um, and so there is a fair amount of livestock. But I also had my first encounter with a badger on that route where I was coming up around a bend and this badger came out and I slowed down just to kind of let him pass, and he kind of backed up and squared off with me, and so I kind of turned to the right to go around him, and he like veered into my path to almost stop me or like go head to head with me. I'm like, Jesus, badger is a little aggressive. And eventually it did go away, but like this is, I would say, not an unusual characteristic of
Yeah,
the Albia Holy Cow race is that there's a lot of wildlife in that area, and it just makes it fun and special in some ways.
yeah.
Do you remember anything else about the course? What you thought of it? What kind of the race felt like?
Um, I remember the it felt like there was more hills than what the elevation said, which I thought was really odd. Like I think
Yeah,
it was only said that it was like 35,000, but it felt like more, even though like most of them were kind of more rollers, it still felt like there was a lot more than that.
yeah, it is. I think it is about 3,500 feet of elevation, but I don't. Albia is in my Albia is different. It is not hilly, it's dippy. because
Okay.
it's mostly plateaus from just the royal, like the normal prairie and everything. But then there's these very deep areas where uh, the river is washed out, and so much like Walk On in the Driftless Hills, you kind of like come from the flat plateau of the main elevation of the area, and then you drop down real fast, and you have to climb back up.
That
Um,
makes sense.
and so yeah, you end up with some pretty substantial hills or dips, as it were, and um, they end up being a little bit different than, say, the rolling hills of Nebraska or Kansas, or
Right.
even the hills that we have in the Les Hills that are, those steep climbs and ups. So it's challenging.
Yeah, it
I
was
don't
good.
know. I think it's challenging. Would you think?
Yeah, I thought it was. And one thing I do remember is right from the gate, there was like a break breakaway of like 4 or 5 people. And so I remember we all were putting in a lot of effort there. And I think that is one of the things that messed me up in the end, besides the giving issue. But yeah, it that wore me down a lot. I remember making, I guess, the wrong decision by going with that break instead of trying to reel them in slowly with the rest of them. Because after that, it was like a group of like 10.
Oh,
Or
so you went out with the break a little bit, and then kind of got dropped. Ended up with the group
well,
behind them, or
no. So I we all got caught by them. Like the chase group caught us. And so I
oh.
think that just putting out that extra energy, trying to a stay a breakaway and not get caught by the chase group, kind of screwed me in the long run.
And it's hard to tell when you're on the bikes, but maybe you start seeing some of these faces and names more and more as you race. But like Jake Johnson, that Albia was his first win, which was exciting. He'd been on the podium twice before that, and then Brendan Hardy came in second, and Brian Wenzel from Trek Bicycle. I believe he's actually up in Wisconsin. I can't remember right exactly. Um, they're the one. Were they? Do you think they were in that 10, or were they in that group of five that got caught up and went out fast?
They were in that group of 5 with me. Yeah, all the actually no. Uh, Brian Wenzel, is that his name?
Yeah,
The Trek guy. Yeah,
yeah.
he was in the back group. He was in the chase group. But I know me and Jacob and the other guy, second place guy.
Brendan
Yeah,
Hardy.
Brendan. We were all in the break group. And so yeah, we were just trying to I was just trying to stay ahead and we got caught.
Wow. So it sounds like maybe
It,
Brian towed that. Really probably kind of towed that second group and caught up with you, because uh, Mike Manny, he's really strong. I believe he was on the podium at Pisgah last year, um, and with Hanway and David Holtz, and then you came in fifth. I mean
yeah,
this your time at Albia was 3 hours 9 minutes. I mean, that's a substantial improvement over Silver City.
right. Oh
Uh,
yeah.
do you remember what your time was at Les Hills? Because the courses could be considered a bit similar. They're different, obviously, but like in terms of length, they're more similar and everything. Do you remember what your time was at Les Hills?
I think it was 256.
Oh, really? You got sub 3
Yeah, I know
on
I
Les
did
Hills.
get less than 3, but I think it was like 256 around there.
Okay, so yeah, so the hills did have a little bit of an impact, because even Jake Johnson. I mean, we had some fast riders, and it was a nice day. It didn't get too hot. So Albia was a
Yeah,
little
that's
bit
good.
challenging compared to maybe the Les Hills day that folks had. If
And so going back to Albia, I know you said you're gonna touch this point, but so during that, I had my older race bike, which was a state black label, and it was a 1 by in the front and then like 11 in the back, I think. And getting towards the end, probably like the last 8 miles, Brian kept trying to put a little efforts in going uphills to see if he could drop me, and he never could going uphills. but I kept thinking like each time I go down a hill, because these were pretty big, like you said, pretty big dips. Going down a hill, I would always spin out every single time. So I was like, if they want to get me, they both have two buys, and they could just drop me on a downhill. And sure enough, like 10 minutes later, one of them attacks me and drops me on a downhill. And
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, what do you do?
yeah. What do you do? So that was kind of sounds like that was kind of the main lesson learned there
Yes,
at Albia was time to get that two by so you could be a little bit more competitive on the and have that top end speed. You just
right,
it's a trade off with a one by usually for convenience versus amount of speed you
right,
want. If you're racing, it probably makes sense to have that two by.
right. And yeah, one by I would understand for like really long distances, just trying to avoid mechanicals, but in these 60 miles where you're trying to win it, you gotta have a two by to not get dropped on the downhill. Because you can going uphill, you can always stick with them if you got the power, but going downhill, if you're spinning out, there's absolutely nothing you can do.
Yeah, it really limits you. Well, I want to get on to Pisgah real quick and then wrap this up. This has been fantastic. It's been so cool to kind of hear your experiences with it and compare and kind of get into the numbers and stuff. It's nice that we have all that to look at right together. So Pisgah, what made it different? Because you've gone from like a 4:30 at one race to Lus Hills, feeling really good there, to being coming in fifth at Albia, very competitive, and then coming in second here at Pisgah with a time of, sorry, as I squeak back through the site, I'm again sub 3. Now Pisgah is a shorter course. It's only about 55 miles.
Right.
Um, but tell me a little bit about how Pisgah worked out for you.
So honestly, as of right now, I'd say Pisgah is my best gravel race I've had.
Why is that? What made it the best?
Just training on point and just doing everything right, I guess. And I don't know, I just seem to shine through a little bit more. I usually am never good at like pulling the front and like keeping consistent pull speed for a good amount of time. But when we hit that 8 mile section, we were averaging like 23 miles an hour. And I was just doing great on pulling, I thought.
Wow.
Better than
So
I have.
the 8 mile section, you're talking about the 8 mile flat through
Yeah, yeah,
the soybean fields and everything after
yeah,
you kind of what happens on the courses, it's like a figure eight. You start in Pisgah,
yeah,
you head up north, you got a couple big climbs basically, which is unusual to have two climbs essentially on 22 miles of course. And then it comes back to the city or the town of Pisgah, and then it goes out. You do another MMR called Kelsey. It kind of goes along the ridge line and it drops down, and then there's 8 miles of flat before the second aid station, and then one last climb that's known as 138th and Fulton. So yeah, so you were taking strong pulls with Jake. Was David Holst with you as well at that point?
no. So, no. So we actually dropped him in the first 22 miles around that first top loop. So we were all just going, and then I think we dropped him on a downhill actually. I don't exactly know why, but then we just kept going. And then the guy in the white jersey, I forget his name.
I think
He
it's Ian Brightlow.
Yes, that is it. He lost a water bottle, so he had to stop at the aid station and get another like fill up because he only had one water bottle. And so that left Seth, Merrick, me, and then Jacob. And then after we got past that like highway after the aid station and started hitting those hills, we dropped Seth, Merrick, and then it was just me and Jacob from there on out.
So were you taking pretty consistent pulls back and forth with Jake, or
Yeah, we were. We were doing like 2 mile pulls probably, which like I said, normally I cannot do that good. Usually I'm very good at climbing. So this course also fit me in the climbing aspect because I can just shoot right up a hill.
get
Whereas
that?
like bigger guys have to put a lot more power out than I would have to put out. And
Yeah,
so
I would imagine that you and Jake are about the same height, but I do know that Jake he's strong. Like he
Yeah,
did Ironman triathlons, things like that. So the weight to power ratio is a little bit different for you too.
right.
Um, but I can see that. Interesting. So when did you and Jake get separated?
It was after that big climb. So after the bikeway or the Omaha Velo aid station, we went up the big climb and then we were with each other for a while. And then he got behind me and I felt like I knew something was up. So I watched him and he started coming up on me and I picked it up a little bit and then what's funny actually is he's like after I saw that he's like trying to give me a little bit, he's like, it's time to race. And I was like, yes, it is. Because we were only like 5 miles from the finish probably. And then
Was
literally
this
the
back on
next,
the gravel or were
yeah,
you so Fulton is an MMR and it's stupid steep. I don't think either of you had to walk it, but
no,
but it's
it was tough. That was the hardest climb I've done.
it's ridiculously steep. It's not long, but it's very steep.
Right.
And then it has a long descent through on kind of it was really dusty because it had been hot the whole
Yes.
last week and there had been no moisture for at least a week and so you pull back onto the gravel and that's I think around Genevieve or something like that and it kind of winds back until you get back to the finish line. So it was on that gravel that he's like time to
Yeah.
race.
We just started hitting those more rolling hills and I saw him come up behind me and try and put a little effort in on me. And I just kind of stuck with him, didn't let him pass me at all. Then he's like, it's time to race. And in my head, I'm just thinking, yeah. And then we went up a hill, and then going down the hill, he just blew away. And I was like, and then I yelled to him, I was like, good racing. I don't know if he heard it, but
Yeah,
like,
the wind in his ear. Well,
right.
fun. That sounds awesome. Well, Seth, this has been a fantastic conversation. Really cool to hear kind of a little bit of your experience. I know you're going to college. I think it sounds like you've got a scholarship with the mountain biking team there at Western Colorado University.
Yes.
What's left in your season before you head off?
Gravel Worlds
Sweet. What are you hoping at Gravel Worlds?
to win
For your age group, the whole thing? Like what does
for
that
the
mean?
whole 75. That's my goal.
Oh, you're doing the
A
75?
lot of the faster guys who are like Jacob, he's doing like the 150. Like the 150 is the one everybody is really trying to win. So it leaves less competition for me. I know competition's great, but I don't know. I'm just hoping. I drove the whole route today. I went out to the finish and practiced the end to see where I'm gonna put my move in. I've just been trying to prepare, trying to win it, but it'll be tough. Or if not, at least a podium, hopefully.
Well, I will be there cheering folks on. I'm volunteering. We'll be at some of the aid stations, and I should be at the finish line somewhere around. I think I'll be there more for the 150 distance than
Yeah.
the 75. So I'll be looking for your name and following up on you. So I wish you best of luck with the gear, mechanicals, nutrition, fitness, all of that. It sounds like you've had a great season nonetheless, and so look forward to having you on a future race after you build up even more fitness and abilities with this next year at college. I'm guessing that next summer is going to be a lot of fun for you.
Oh yeah, for
Cool.
sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jake. With that, want to just do a few things as cleanup with the podcast. Want to thank our sponsors, Bike Rags, who supplies all of our jerseys. Seth here will be getting a free jersey, a limited edition Iowa Gravel Series jersey. We've got N Collar, who supplies some wonderful socks and other things. They're a men's brand that we absolutely adore. XX2I, they've supplied some sunglasses and have been a great sponsor for the race as well. And so with that, thank you so much for listening in, and we will catch you next time.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see you, Chris.